Hey there, welcome back to Charger Games. My name is Raja, and in this video you're gonna learn how to make a simple Android game using Unity game engine. Now, if you have been following me for quite a while, you will know that I have made a video on this topic in 2017, 18, 19, and even before that. So this time we're gonna make a new and updated video. So before starting, let's take a look at what you're gonna be building at the end of this video. So as you can see here, we have this game, and this is the first screen that you see. So as you can see, it says press any key to start. So I can press on the left and the game starts, and this way I can move the paddle to the left or the right. When you touch on your Android device on the left and right, the paddle will move and the ball will bounce. And as you can see, as soon as the ball goes down, the game restarts. So this is the core function of the game, and we're gonna build it from scratch. So let's get started. Okay, so now let's start downloading and installing the tools that we need to build our Android game. Now, as always, we're gonna create our game using the Unity game engine. So we're gonna go to Google and search for download Unity, and we can click on the very first result, or we can go to the Unity's website and from there we can get it. Now from here you need to download the Unity Hub because it has made everything so easy. So you need to download the Unity Hub, and if you don't have an account in Unity before, you need to create an account, because later on when you're gonna use a license or create a license for Unity, then you will need an account. So if you don't have an account, you can go here and create a new account. So after that, just click on this download Unity Hub, and the Unity Hub will be downloaded on your computer, but I have already downloaded it, so I'm not going to install it. So once you have downloaded and installed it, and then you can open the Unity Hub, and this is how the Unity Hub will look when it will open for the very first time. Now here you need to go to this Installs tab, and here you will be able to see all the versions of Unity that you have installed on your computer. So from here you can simply click on this add button, and now it will tell you the versions of Unity that are available for you to download. As you can see, this one is the latest version, and here we have some alpha or beta releases. So if you want to download them, you can download them from here as well. So in most of the cases you have to download the latest stable release or the latest official releases. Alright, so after selecting that, simply click on next. And now this is a very important part. So here you have to select the components that you want to install along with Unity. So in this case, we are building this project for Android, so we need to install this Android build support for our Unity game engine, and this is very essential. So if you don't install these things, then you will not be able to build and run your game for Android, or you will not be able to build an APK. Alright, so make sure to select them, and along with selecting Android build support, you need to install this Android SDK NDK tools and this OpenJDK along with it, because all these things come internally, so that you don't have to do anything from the outside. Before, a few years ago, it was really hard to set up all these things, but now Unity has made these things very easy. So once you have selected this and all the required components that you need, you can simply click on next, and then you need to accept the license agreement and click on done, and now you will see that Unity will start installing. And as you can see, this latest version is going to start installing, but I'm going to cancel it because I already have installed many other versions, so I'm going to cancel it. So once you have installed the Unity version, then you can go to this projects tab, and from here you can click on new. You can also select the version you want to use for your project from here. As you can see, I have all these versions installed, so I can use any of these versions. So I'm going to use the latest version, so click on new, and Unity will create a new project for you. Now first of all, you have to give a name to your project. So in this case, let's give a name Unity Android project. Alright, and then here you need to select the location where you want to save your project. In my case, I always save my projects here, so you can save it here, or you can save it on any other location that you prefer. Then we need to select this 2D because in this case we are working on a 2D project. So we're going to select 2D. After that, simply click on create and it will create a new project for you. So in my case, I have already created a new empty project. So here it is, Unity Android project. Here we have it. So when you open Unity for the very first time and your very first project loads, this is how it will look. But probably in your case, it will not look like this. Probably in your case, it will look like this. All right. But I usually like to work on a different layout. So to change the layout, you can go to this top right corner, click on here and select this 2x3. And I like to work on this layout because here I can see the scene view as well as the game view at the same time, but you can use any other layout that you prefer. So now the first thing we have to do is we need to save the scene. So file, save, and as you can see our scene is already saved inside the scenes folder, but the name is saved as sample scene. So you're gonna go ahead and rename it, and you're gonna name it game. All right, and then reload. And as you can see here, we have renamed our scene to game. Now we're gonna go to file, build settings, and as you can see, currently our platform is set to PC, Mac, Linux standalone. But we want to build for Android devices. So for that, we need to select this Android. And if you don't have the Android versions installed or the Android components installed while installing Unity, then you will not be able to do this. All right. So now you need to select this Android and simply click on switch platform. And once you click on that, you will see that Unity will slowly change our platform from Windows to Android. So here, as you can see, the Unity logo has been shifted towards Android. So now our current platform is set to Android. And if you see on top, as you can see here, Android is written. That means this is our current platform that we are working on. Then we need to select an aspect ratio for our game. So as you can see here, free aspect is written. From here, we need to select this 16:9 landscape, or you can also select this 1920 by 1080 landscape. I think I want to select this, so let's keep it like this. Now we need to start working on our game. So inside the assets folder, we're gonna keep all our assets or all our project elements like sprites, audios, scripts, and all these things here. So we're gonna create different folders here to organize all these things. So here I'm gonna create a new folder and I'm gonna name it sprite, where we're gonna keep all our sprites or images. We can also create a new folder and we're going to name it scripts, where we're going to keep all our scripts. All right. So now, as you can see here, we have this game scene, and here we have all the elements that are inside this game scene. Currently, we only have this main camera. So we can select the main camera, and from here, as you can see, we have this background. And the background clear flags are set to solid color. So let's go ahead and change the color. So select here, and from here we can select any other background color that you want. Let's select a color like this. It's your game, so you can go ahead and select any other color that you want. So you are free to use or choose any other color, but I think I want to choose a color like this. All right, so, or maybe like this. So let's keep it like this. We can change it later as well. So whenever you make any changes, make sure to press Ctrl S or go to File, Save to save your scene. All right. So now we're gonna create some boundaries for our game. So we're gonna go inside the sprites folder, right click, create a new sprite. So we're going to create sprites and square. All right. So now we're going to drag this square right here on the hierarchy. And as you can see here, we have our square. Now I can move it on the top like this. So to move it on the top, make sure you have this rect tool selected. And then we can simply press the Alt button and drag it to make it bigger like this. All right. And if you don't want to click on the Alt button, you need to do it like this manually. But if you press the Alt button, then you can do both sides at the same time. So press the Alt key and click, and this is how we have created the long boundary. All right. Now let's go ahead and change its color. So I'm going to change it to a color of something like this. I think this one looks fine. Or if you want, you can also go ahead and change it and give it any other color that you want. Then I'm gonna rename it to boundary. Now I can right click and click on duplicate. Alright, now I can select this tool, this move tool, and move it down something like this. Then I can go to this transform component, and from the Z rotation, I'm gonna make it 90. Alright, then I'm gonna push it to the right side like this. Now before doing that, I think I have missed one step. So let's go ahead and select this boundary, go to add component, go to physics 2D, and select box collider 2D. Alright, so when we give a box collider 2D, as you can see here, we have a green outline outside of our boundary. So now our boundary can collide with other game objects. Alright, so if we don't give it a boundary, or if we don't give it a collider, then our balls will pass through it and they will not collide or bounce from the walls. But we want the balls to bounce from the walls. That's why we want to give it a box collider. The same way, we're going to select this boundary as well, and we can go to add component, physics 2D, box collider 2D. So now we need to create a boundary on the left side, and this is very simple. I'm going to right click, click on duplicate, and now as you can see, we have another boundary here, but this one is at the same position. So all we need to do is we need to change the X position from 8.88 to negative 8.88. And as you can see, as soon as I click, as soon as I give a negative sign before that, it just moves to left side on the opposite side. So now these things are looking pretty good, and all of them have a box collider attached to them. So now that we have created the boundaries, now we need to bring the paddle and the ball in our scene. So now we're going to add the paddles and the balls to our game. So here inside the sprites folder, I have few sprites of the paddles that I have downloaded from the internet, and you can download them from kenny.nl website or from any other website that you want. And from here, I can simply drag this paddle right here, and as you can see here, we have our paddle. Now as you can see, it is very small. So to make it bigger, we can either change the scale directly from here, or the better way is to select our sprite and change the pixels per unit from 50 to 100, and then click on from 100 to 50, I'm sorry, and then click on apply. As you can see, the size has been doubled. Now I can simply select it and move it down like this. All right. The same way, we can select our ball and drag it like this, and then we can select the ball sprite, change the pixels per unit from 100 to 50, and then click on apply. So now we have our paddle as well as our ball right here on the screen. Now we need to find ways so that we can move our ball and move our paddle, bounce our ball, and do all these things that we want. And whenever you make any changes, make sure to save the scene. So I'm going to press Ctrl S to save the scene. Now I'm going to select our ball blue, and I'm going to rename it to ball. Now we're going to add a physics component to our ball. Now we want our ball in the game to bounce through the walls, to bounce from the paddle, and then we want it to collide with the paddle and the boundaries. So that's why we need to add some physics mechanisms to the ball. All right. To do that in Unity, we need to simply add a component called rigid body 2D. So here we're going to click on add component, physics 2D, and rigid body 2D. And where is that? So here we have the rigid body 2D. So as you can see, when we added this rigid body 2D component, it automatically has these properties like mass, drag, gravity scale, and all these things. So Unity's physics engine gives this thing to us already, or by default, when we add this rigid body 2D component to any game object. So in this case, we have added it to the ball. And now if I click on play, you will see that the ball will fall down. And that's because it now has a gravity scale of 1. So the ball is now affected by physics, and that's why it is falling down. Now we need to give a collider to the ball so that it can collide with other game objects. So I'm going to go to add component, physics 2D, and give it a circle collider 2D because our ball has a circular shape. So if you go ahead and zoom in, first of all, I'm going to disable the gizmo of the camera because it's making problem. So I'm going to disable it. So as you can see here, we have a green outline. That means our ball has a collider attached to it. All right. So now we have a collider attached to the ball, but still the ball will fall down because our paddle doesn't have a collider. All right. So now we're going to select our paddle blue and let's rename it to paddle. And now I'm going to go to add component, go to physics 2D, and add a capsule collider 2D object. And as you can see here, we have the capsule added to the paddle. And now we can click on this edit collider button and edit the collider directly from here. And as you can see, the direction of the capsule is set to vertical. So that means if we change the X or Y size, it will still remain vertical like this. It will still remain vertical, but we want it to be horizontal. So that's why we're going to change the direction from vertical to horizontal. And now if I change the X or the Y values, and as you can see, it will shrink down like this, and it will simply take the shape of any object that you want. In this case, we need to take the shape of this paddle. You can also select this edit collider button and edit it directly from here. So anything that you think is more suitable for you, you can use that option and create a collider around it. So now we have a nice capsule collider all around our paddle. All right. So now our paddle is ready to take all the collisions. So now if I go ahead and click on play, you will see this time the ball will fall down, but it will not go through the paddle. That's because our paddle has a collider attached to it now. All right. So now let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Now let's make the ball bounce. To make the ball bounce, we need to add a physics material to the ball. So to do that, we're going to go to this assets folder, right click, create, and from here we're going to create a physics material 2D, and we're going to name it bounce, not bounce, bounce. And now we're going to change its friction from this point to 0. That means we don't want any friction, and we're going to change the bounciness to 1. All right. So now our bounciness is set to 1. That means the ball has the maximum bounce property. Okay. So now if I go ahead and click on play, you will see the ball will fall down and it will bounce, but it is not bouncing. And that's because we have created the property, but we have not added it to the ball. So as you can see here, we have the circle collider 2D, and here we have the material. We can simply drag and drop our bounce property in the material. So let's drag it and drop it on the material. So our ball now has this bounce property attached to it. Now we can click on play, and you will see the ball keeps bouncing. And this is the first movable thing you have created, and probably you will love this. All right. So the ball is bouncing. So we have done the first step. Now what we need to do is we need to move our paddle, and also we need to add some force to the ball. To do all these things, we need to create our very first scripts. All right. The scripts give behavior to our game objects. In this case, we want to give some behavior to the pedal and also to the ball. So first of all, let's try to move our pedal left and right. So let's go ahead and create a new script. So I'm going to go to inside the scripts folder, right click, create a new C# script, and make sure to rename it directly here, because if you try to rename it later, you will not be able to do it. So let's name it pedal controller, or simply you can name it pedal because that's simpler. So let's make it pedal. Now we can select our pedal and drag and drop the script right here. So now the pedal script is attached to our pedal. That means anything that we write inside the pedal will control or will affect the pedal. Now I can simply double click on it to open it in Visual Studio. Now in your case, if you have selected any other code editor, it may open there. So here, as you can see, our script has been opened in Visual Studio. I'm gonna zoom in to make it a little bit bigger. Now here we need to write our very first code. So first of all, we're going to create a new variable called rigid body 2D. So here we're going to create a new variable and we're going to write rigid body 2D, rigid body 2D, and we're going to name it RB. So this variable will store a reference to the rigid body that we have attached to our pedal. And then we can use that reference to move our pedal. So now here we're going to create a new function called void awake. So this function gets called even before the start function automatically by Unity. So whenever we need to get a reference to any objects, we need to use this awake function. Now let's go back to Unity and check few things. So if I go back to Unity and select our pedal, you can see we have not attached a rigid body to our pedal. So first of all, we need to go to add component, physics 2D, and add a rigid body 2D component to our pedal. Alright, now as you can see, this one has this gravity as well, but we don't want our pedal to fall down. So if I click on play, you will see our pedal will fall down along with the ball, but we don't want that. So that's why we're going to make the gravity scale 0. And then from the constraints, we're going to use the freeze position Z, and we're going to check it. Freeze rotation Z, and we're going to check it. That means we don't want our pedal to rotate around Z axis like this. So we want it to stay still and not move. So like this. So now what we can do is, from our script, we need to get a reference to this rigid body 2D that is attached to this component. And then by using the rigid body 2D and by using the physics functions, we need to move our pedal using some physics forces. So let's save it and go back to our scripts. And in the awake function, we're going to say RB equals get component, and within this angle brackets, we're going to write rigid body 2D, and then we're going to give a pair of parentheses. So this is the syntax when we want to get access to any component that is attached to our game object. In this case, we are getting access to the rigid body 2D component that is attached to our pedal, and we are storing it inside this RB variable. Alright, then we can do anything with this rigid body attached to anything with the rigid body that is attached to our pedal using this RB reference. Alright, now here we're going to create another variable. We're going to name it public float move speed. So this is the speed by which we want to move our pedal to the left and right direction. So here we're going to create a new function. We're going to call it void touch move. So inside this function, we're going to give all the functionalities that we have for our pedal to move, or for the touch input. Alright. So first of all, to detect if we have touched on the screen or if we have clicked on the screen, we're going to say if input dot get mouse button, not btt, input dot get mouse button 0. So we want to detect if we have pressed the left mouse button on our mouse, and the left mouse button on our mouse will work as the touch input on our Android device as well. So we want to detect whether we are pressing on the screen or whether we are clicking on the screen. So to do that, this is what we have to do. All right. So this one will check if we are clicking on the screen. And if we are clicking on the screen, now we have to detect whether we are clicking on the left side of the screen or whether we are clicking on the right side of the screen. To do that, first of all, we need to get the position where we are touching. So to do that, I'm going to create a new variable, vector2 touch pose. So this variable will store the position where we have touched. And how will we get the touch position? We will get it from the mouse position. So we're going to say input dot mouse position. So here we have our mouse, and if I click on the screen, it will call the input.getMouse button function. So if I'm pressing here, it will call the input.getMouse button function. And now, as you can see, the center of the screen is 0, 0. And on the left and right, we have the x-axis. And on the left, we have the negative values. And on the right, we have the positive values. So here at the center, we have 0. Then -1, -2, -3, -4. Here we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So like this, we have to detect whether we are pressing at a position where the x value is negative. Then we want to move the paddle to the left. And if we are clicking on the position where the x value is positive, then we have to move the paddle to the right. All right. So now let's move back to our script. And here, as you can see, we are getting the touch position. And then we are getting the mouse position where we are touching. But this will not work because this is in screen coordinates. But whenever we are working on the games, most of the time we need the world coordinates. Now to convert it to screen to world coordinates, we need to write camera.main.screen to, not screen point array, screen to world point, and then within parentheses, we need to pass this position. So now it will take this position, convert it from screen point to world point, and then store it inside this touch pose variable. All right. So now we need to check if touch pose.x is less than 0. That means we are pressing on the left side of the screen. And else if touch pose.x is greater than 0. All right. Or we can simply write else here. So if we are pressing at a position where the x value is negative, then we want to move to the left, move left. And if we are pressing at a position where the x value is positive, then we're going to move to the right. All right. So how can we move to the left and how can we move to the right? To move to the left, we're going to say RB, that is our rigid body, dot velocity. So we're going to give a velocity value to our rigid body. And how much is the velocity? We're going to say vector2 dot left multiply move speed. So here we are adding a move speed on the left direction on our velocity value. So now whatever value we'll give, it will move to the left side of our screen. The same way we're going to move it to the right side. So we can simply go ahead and copy it and paste it right here. And instead of writing vector3.left, we're going to simply write vector3.right. So now we're going to add this force or multiply this force on the right direction of our screen. And then we're going to store the velocity in our rigid body. This is the amount of velocity that we are adding to our rigid body. So now whenever we are clicking on the left, it will move to the left. Whenever we are clicking on the right, it will move to the right. But when we are not clicking anywhere, we want our paddle to stop. Otherwise, it will keep moving. So here, right here with this if statement, the outer one, we can add an else statement. Here we're going to say else. That means if we are not clicking on the screen, then we're going to say rv.velocity equals vector2 dot 0. So when we are not clicking anywhere, we want the velocity of the paddle to be 0. Now let's move back to Unity. And here we have our paddle. And here we have the pedal script, and here we have the move speed value. So let's give a value of 8 and then click on play, but it will not work. And when I click on the left and right, nothing works and the pedal goes down. So as you can see, nothing works and the pedal goes down. So what we can do is we can simply check the freeze position on X and Y so that the pedal will not move on the I think we're going to select the freeze position to Y so that the pedal will not move down. It will only move to the left and right. And now if we go back to our script, you can see that we have created this function touch move, but we have not used it anywhere. So you have to call it from somewhere so that we can use it. To do that, we can create another function void fixed update. So here, as you can see, we are moving our pedal using the physics functions or the physics properties. And whenever we are using physics properties, we need to call that inside this fixed update function. So this fixed update function, inside the fixed update function, we're going to write touch move. So here we have our touch move function. And now this fixed update function is automatically get called by Unity again and again and again every physics frame. So it will automatically get called every frame, and this function will get called automatically because we have written it inside this. So all this code will get called again and again and again, and all these things will be happened again and again and again. All right, so now let's save the script and move back to Unity. And this time I'm going to click on play, and I'm going to click on left, and as you can see, our pedal moves left. I can click on right, our pedal moves right. So this way, whenever I click on the left and right, our pedal can move. And as you can see, it cannot move beyond that because we have colliders attached to our boundaries. The same way I can move it to the right. And as you can see, this is how we can move our pedal. If you want, you can simply go ahead and change the speed from 8 to 10, and we can move it faster. All right. So you can adjust it according to your own wish, and your pedal is ready. So now we need to add some code, or we need to write a script for our ball so that we can make it bounce whenever we want and do whenever we want. So let's start coding the ball. So first of all, inside the scripts folder, right click, create a new C# script, and I'm going to name it ball. Now I'm going to select our ball and drag and drop the ball script right here. So here we have the ball script attached to the ball, and then double click to open it in Visual Studio. So the same way, first of all, we need to get a reference to the rigid body that is attached to the ball. So here we're gonna first of all create a new variable, rigid body 2D RB, and then inside the awake function, we're gonna get access to it. So RB equals get component rigid body 2D. So here we are getting access to the rigid body 2D. Now we're going to use it to move or bounce the ball. So now we're going to create another variable, and we're going to call it float bounce force. And we're going to make it public, because if we make it public, then we can change it or change the value from our Unity editor. Now what we can do is, we don't need this function. So what we can do is we can first of all create a function named bounce. So we can name it void bounce, or to be more precise, we're going to write start bounce. So what this function will do is, this function will make our ball move to a random direction or add force to our ball in a random direction. So first of all, we're going to create a new variable vector2 random direction. And how can we get the random direction? To get the random direction, first of all, we need to create a new vector2, then for the x value, we're going to choose a random value, and to choose a random value, we need to write random dot range, and inside the range, we're going to write -1 as the minimum value and +1 as the maximum value. And then for the y value of the vector2, we need to write 1. All right. So this is how we are getting the random direction. So this random direction is a vector2 variable, So we are creating a vector2 here, and the vector2 has two values, x value and y value. So this one before the comma, whole thing is an x value, and we are making the x value random between -1 and +1, and we are making the y value as 1. Now we need to use this random value and add force to our ball in this random direction. To do that, we're going to say rb dot add force, and we need to give a direction in which we want to add the force. For that, we're going to write random direction, and by how much amount we want to add the force, we're going to multiply it with bounce force variable that we have created. So that means we are adding a force in the random direction by the amount of this bounce force. And then we can write a comma, and here we're going to write force mode 2D dot impulse. It will give even more force to our ball, and it will make it easier for us to make our ball move faster in lower bounce force value. So now all we need to do is we need to call this start bounce function sometime. So in this case, whenever we are clicking or pressing on our screen, and whenever we are pressing any key, we want to start this bounce function. So inside the update function, we're going to say if input dot any key down. So whenever we are pressing any key or touching anywhere on the screen, then we want to call this start bounce function. So whenever we are clicking anywhere, we want to make our ball start bouncing, and from there we can start working on the game. So now that we have done all these things, so whenever we're going to touch anywhere, our ball should start bouncing. So let's go back to our Unity editor. Here we have our ball, so we can give a value to this bounce force. So for now, I think let's give a value of 10. All right. And also I'm going to select the ball and change its gravity scale from 1 to 0, because we don't want it to move and fall down. Now if I click on play, and if I press any key or just touch on the screen, as you can see, a random force has been added to the ball. So if I go ahead and start again, this time again I can click on anywhere, and as you can see, the force is added to the ball in a random direction. So I can click on play and start again, and if I click, random force has been added and the ball keeps moving and goes down, and I can also move the paddle to make the ball bounce. So what we can do is we can make the bounce force a little bit smaller, like 8 or 5, and that will be more accurate. So now we have added the script to the ball as well as to the paddle. So now we can move the paddle, and also we can move the ball or make the ball bounce. Now we need to do other things, like when the ball falls down, we need to restart the game. We also need to add scores, and we also need to create the menu. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so now let's see how we can restart the game when the ball falls down. So to handle all these things, all these different mechanisms of the game, we're going to create a new script called Game Manager, and we're going to create a new Game Manager object that will handle all these things. So here we're going to right click, and we're going to create an empty game object, and we're going to name it Game Manager. Then we're going to create a new script inside the scripts folder, and we're going to name it Game Manager. Now we're going to simply drag and drop the Game Manager script on our Game Manager game object. Let me wait for Unity to load it. All right. Now let's double click to open it in Visual Studio. So here we have our Game Manager. Now we want all our scripts to access this Game Manager script easily, because here we will have all the controls of the game. So that's why we're going to make it a static instance. And when we create a static instance, all other scripts will have easy access to this Game Manager script. So here we're going to write public static Game Manager instance. Then we're going to create the awake function, and inside the awake function we're going to say instance equals this. All right. So here we are creating a static instance of the game manager, and we are setting the instance to this instance, that is the instance that we have in the game, to this game manager. So if we write this code, then all our other scripts will have easy access to this game manager and all its public functions. Okay? So now here we're going to create a new public function, public void restart. So this function will help us to restart the game whenever something happens, like whenever the ball falls down. Now to restart the game, we need to reload the scene. And to reload the scene, we need to import or use another namespace, because the functions that we have there are part of another namespace. So first of all, here we need to write using Unity engine.scene management. Okay. So now that we have imported the scene management, now we can use different functions from this scene management namespace. So inside restart, we're going to say scene manager, not mang. Oops, not mang. Scene manager dot load scene. And which scene we want to load? We want to reload the current scene that we have. That is, we have only one scene in the game and we want to reload that one. So either you can write within quotation the name of the scene. So in this case, the name of the scene is game. So you're going to write it, or there are other ways to do it as well. But in this case, we're going to keep it simple and simply write the name of the scene. So if you go to Unity, you can see if you go inside the scenes folder, let me wait for it to finish loading. As you can see, the name of the scene is game, and you need to write it exactly as it is written here. So what will happen is whenever restart function gets called, this game scene will get reloaded. That is, it will start from beginning and load again. Okay. So now what we need to do is, now we need to check when the paddle falls down on something. That is, when the paddle goes out of the screen. So to check that, what we're going to do is, here we're going to create a new empty game object, and we're going to name it, what are we going to name it? We're going to name it, let's say, fall check. Okay. We're going to reset its position. Then we're going to position it somewhere like this out of the screen. So this square that you are seeing, this is the camera or the camera view of our scene, and anything outside of this is outside of the screen. So we want the ball, whenever the ball goes out of the screen, then we want to restart the scene. So we're going to select this fall check, go to add component, physics 2D, and we're going to add a box collider 2D. Now we're going to click on this edit collider button and simply drag it to make it large enough like this. So now whenever the ball goes out of the screen, it will collide with this fall check, and then we're gonna what we're gonna do is we're gonna restart the game. So whenever our ball collides with this object which is outside of the screen, then we're gonna restart the scene. All right. Now another thing we can do is we can go ahead and add a tag to this one. So as you can see here, we have a tag and currently it is untagged. So you're going to click here, click on add tag, click on add, and here we're going to say fall check. Okay. Now again, we're going to select this one from the tag, select fall check. So now we have this fall check tag attached to this fall check object. So now all we need to do is we need to go to our ball script. So here we have our ball script, and we need to find a way so that we can detect whether the ball is colliding with anything. So to detect that, Unity has a very good function called on collision enter 2D. So you're going to write void on collision enter 2D, and exactly like this. So now what we can do is we can simply check if the ball is colliding with a game object which has this fall check tag attached. So to do that, we're going to say if collision dot game object dot tag equals false check, and if this happens, then we're going to say we can simply restart the game. And to restart the game, we're going to say game manager dot instance dot restart. So this is how it will call the restart function from our game manager script from our ball script. So here, whenever our ball will collide with any other collider, this function will get called automatically by Unity. And then inside this collision variable, it will pass information about the object with which we are colliding. So from this object or from this variable, we will get the access to whatever thing it has collided with. So we are checking if we have collided with an object which has this false check tag attached, then we're going to simply restart the game or restart the scene. So if you see here, you can see here we have this false check tag attached to this game object. So whenever our ball will go out of the screen, it will collide with this one, and this one will call the restart function, and our game will be restarted. So let's see. Let's click on play. Click, and ball goes out of the screen, and it gets restarted again. Ball goes out of the screen, and it automatically gets restarted again. So our restart mechanism is working fine, as you can see here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create the scoring mechanism for the game. So whenever our ball will touch the paddle, we're gonna increase the score. So first of all, let us go ahead and create an UI element that will display the score on the screen. So to do that, we're gonna click here, go to UI, and create a new text object. So as you can see, we have a text object here, but we cannot see it in the scene. If I double click on it, we can see here we have a new text selected. We can go here and click on reset to reset its position. And now as you can see, now it's in the center. Now I can double click to go here. Now, whenever we create a new UI element, a canvas object comes automatically with it. So all our UI elements are part of this canvas. Now what we want to do is we want to make this canvas such a way so that it will scale with any screen size that we want, so that our UI elements will not be so much smaller or bigger or go out of the screen. So we're going to select the canvas, go to canvas scaler component and click on scale with screen size. And for the screen resolution, we're going to give 1920 by 1080. Just the resolution that we are using. So now it should work correctly. Now I can select our text, go to this rect tool and increase the size of the box that we have inside which we have our text. Then we can put it on the center like this. Okay. Now we can reset the position. Reset its position like this. So here we have our text position. And now what we can do is we can select the text, and from the alignment we're going to make it center on vertical axis and center on the horizontal axis as well. So this is where our text is now. Now we can go ahead and change the font size and increase it like this. And let's change the text to 0 so that it represents our score. Now for the font, I have downloaded few fonts from the kenny.nl website. You can go ahead and download any other free fonts from any other free fonts website like DaFont or anything. So I can go to font, click on this small circle, and now I can select the fonts that I have here. So I can select this font or this font. I think I'm going to use this one, and then I'm going to increase the font size like this. Then I'm going to position it somewhere like this. Increase the font size a little more. I think I cannot increase it anymore. So I think this one should look good. Let's check how much it can go. So 10, 100. So if we make anything more than 10, it cannot show it. So let's go ahead and make the size a little bit bigger. Something like this. and then position it on the center. Okay, now it can show 100, 1000, 10,000, anything that you want. So let's make it 0. And now for the color, let's make it white. And now the alpha value of the color, we're going to make it smaller, something like this, so that it becomes a little bit transparent, something like this. And whenever the score increases, it shows somehow like this. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 10, 100, and this is how our score will be shown on the screen. Okay, so now that we have created the score, let's rename it to score text. Now we need to find a way to increase our score, and also we need to find a way to update the value of score on the screen. Okay, so let's go back to our scripts. And here we have this game manager script, and inside the game manager, first of all, we need to create a function called score up, public void score up. So this function will handle the scoring mechanism of our game. So first of all, here we need to create a new integer variable called int score, which will store the value of our score. So initially it will be 0, and after that it will slowly increment to 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. And another thing we need to do is we need to create another variable to store the text element of the score that we have created, the score text that we have created. To do that, here we're going to say text score text. So this text is our UI element text. But as you can see, currently it says red. That's because we have not implemented, or we have not imported, or we have not used the namespace inside which we have all the UI elements in Unity. So in Unity, if we want to use the UI elements, then we need to write using Unity engine.ui. So now as you can see, as soon as I write UI, this text becomes green, and now it is a valid statement. So now what we can do is, inside the score up function, we're going to say score plus plus. That means increment the value of score by 1. So whenever the score up function will get called, we will increase the value of score variable by 1. And along with that, we can also update the value on the screen. So we need to update the value of our score text, which is shown on the screen. To do that, we're going to say score text dot text. That is, we are changing the text property of the score text, and we are setting it to score. So we are changing the text property of our score text that we have on the screen, and we are setting the value to the score value that we have. So if it is 0, it will show 0 on screen. If it is 10, it will show 10 on screen. But this one is a string variable, and this score is an integer variable. So we need to convert it to a string. So we're going to write score dot to string, and now everything should work fine. Now our score will be incremented whenever the score up function will get called, and it will also show the updated score on the screen. Now we're going to make it public. We're going to make our score text variable public because we need to drag and drop our score text in this reference so that we can get access to that score text. So now we need to go back to our ball script. And as you can see here, we are checking if our ball is colliding with the fall check. The same way, we're going to say else if collision.gameObject.tag equals paddle. So if our ball collides with the paddle, then we're going to simply call the score up function from our game manager. So here we're going to say game manager instance.score up. All right. So now whenever our paddle or our ball collides with the paddle, then this score up function will get called, and our score will be incremented, and also the updated score will be shown on the screen. So here we have our game manager, and here it is waiting for the reference to the score text. So we're going to drag and drop the score text right here. Now I'm going to click on play. And now let me click on here, and when the ball touches it, as you can see, the score is not getting incremented. So the problem is that we need to check if our ball is colliding with the game object which has the paddle tag attached. But in this case, our paddle doesn't have a tag. So we need to go to this tag, add tag, create a new tag, call it paddle, and then select our paddle and add this paddle tag to it. So now if I click on play, I can simply go ahead and start moving, and our ball, okay, as you can see, whenever the ball collides with this one, this thing happens. Now, as you can see, there's a weird behavior. Whenever we're clicking here, the ball is going to another direction. And that's because whenever we are clicking on the screen, the ball is getting a force and it is starting to get a new velocity in a new random direction. So let's go ahead and fix that. So now we need to find a way so that our ball gets bounced only once when the game starts, and then again, no matter whatever key we press, it should not bounce. To do that, we're gonna go back to our script. We're gonna go to this ball script, and here we're gonna create a new variable. We're gonna call it bool game started. So this variable can contain only two values, either true or false. And whenever the game starts, initially it should be false, and whenever the ball goes up, we're gonna set it to true. Okay, so initially it automatically becomes false whenever we create a bool variable. Then we're gonna say if not game started, that is, the game started is false, only then if we are pressing any key, then start bounce. Okay, so if game has not been started, only then if we press any key, start bouncing. And if the game has started, then don't do anything, because in that case we don't want to do that. So after starting bounce, we're gonna say game started equals true. So now the value of game started is true, so this statement will not work, and we're gonna not add the bounce force to the ball once again. So let's see how that's working. So here we have the Unity scene. I'm gonna click on play, and I'm gonna click. As you can see, the ball goes up, and it restarts. Ball goes up, it collides with the paddle, the score goes up, and if I go ahead and move out, the ball goes down and it restarts. So our scoring mechanism and our restarting game mechanism is working fine. So now let's start creating the menu items, or the game name and the text and all these things. So inside the canvas, I'm gonna right click, create UI, and click on panel. And as you can see, a new panel has been created, and I'm gonna call it game start UI. So all our starting elements will be inside this UI element. Okay, now initially we want to disable the score text, so we're going to select the score text and disable it, because it will help us to create this scene better. Now inside this game start UI, I'm going to right click, create UI, and click on text. So here we have another text, and we're going to call it, we're going to give it the name of our game. You can give it any name that you want. First of all, let me go ahead and reset its position. Then I'm gonna give it a name ball. Then I'm gonna select the rect tool, double click on it, and make it bigger. Something like this. Then we're gonna increase its font size, make it center, change its font to this one or this one, anything that you prefer. I think I'm gonna make it this one. Change its font size even more, make it bigger on both sides, center it, change its color from this one to white maybe, or yellow, anything that you'd prefer. I think this one doesn't look that bad. Let's see if the white looks good or bad. Let's keep it like this. Ball. Then I'm gonna double click on it. I'm gonna right click on it, click on duplicate, move it down, and this time I'm gonna change the text to bounce. So ball bounce, this is the name of our game, and this is how it's gonna show here. I think I'm gonna move the ball a little bit downwards. Let's double click on the ball, put it a little bit downwards. Where is our ball? We cannot even see it on the screen. Okay, so I think we're gonna put it somewhere like this, something like this. Okay, on top of our paddle. Now that we have done it, we need to create another text. So I'm gonna select the game start UI, right click, UI, text, or we can simply duplicate that one. So let's delete that and duplicate this text. So right click, duplicate, and we're gonna move it downwards. And this time we're gonna change the text. This time we're gonna decrease the font size. And this time we're gonna change the text to press any key to start. Okay, so this will show up here so that we know, so that the player knows that whenever you press any key, the game will start. We can also go ahead and set both of this on the same line if we want. Let's see how that looks. We can change it again later. We can set it on the same line. I think this one is looking better than what we had before, so I think I'm gonna keep it like this. So ball bounce. It's all about adjusting. You can adjust it and make it look like the way that you want. I think we don't even need the second text then. We're gonna disable this one. Select the first one, make it bigger, and change the text to ball bounce. Okay, and then center it like this. Increase the font size a little more, increase it a little more. So this is all about adjusting your game and making it look the way, giving it the look you want. So here we have press any key to start, and here we have the ball bounce, and here we have the game start UI, inside which we have all these things. So if I go ahead and disable it, as you can see, all the elements will be disabled. Okay, so that's what we gonna do. So let's save the scene. Now we're gonna go to our game manager. We're gonna go to our game manager. Here we're gonna create public game object game start UI. And then whenever the game starts, we're gonna enable it or disable it depending on that. Okay, so there are various different ways by which we can enable it or disable it. So one way to do that is that whenever the game starts, inside the ball function, inside the ball script, as you can see, we are checking if input.any key down, then do this. So here, when the game started becomes true, we can also say game manager dot instance dot game start UI dot set active false. So whenever you want to deactivate anything, you need to call this set active function. So now whenever the game starts, we're gonna deactivate the starting UI, and along with that, we need to reactivate our score text. Okay, So we can also say game manager, or instead of doing all these things, what we can do is we can do all these things directly from our game manager. So inside the game manager, we can create a new function. We can create a public function, public void game start, and inside it we're gonna say game start UI dot set active false. So whenever the game starts, we're gonna set it to false, and then we're gonna say score text dot game object dot set active to true. So whenever this game start function will get called, we're gonna deactivate the start UI and activate the score. Now from the ball script, we need to simply call game manager dot instance dot game start. Okay, so now all these things will be controlled directly from here. So now let's go back to Unity, and here we have all these things. Now we need to simply go to our game manager and see if we have any references to be given here. As you can see, it's waiting to get the game start UI. So we're gonna drag and drop the game start UI directly here. Now we can click on play, and whenever we click anywhere, the game start UI goes on, the score text appears, and whenever the ball goes down, it starts or restarts again. So this is how the game will look like, and this is how it is looking like. So our whole game mechanism is ready. So now all we need to do is we need to build it and publish it and install it on our Android device. So now let's go ahead and see how we can build and publish it on Android. So we're gonna go to this file, build settings, and in order to make sure that the scenes are added to the build, to do that you can simply click on this add open scenes. Then you can go to this player settings, and here the player settings will open. And here we need to do few things. First of all, as you can see, the company name is given default company. Here you can give any company name that you want to give it. You can also give it your own name. I'm gonna simply write Charger Games. Then here you need to select an icon. You can either select this icon or this icon. I think I'm gonna select this icon. Then from the resolution and presentation, as you can see here, we have this auto rotation selected, but we don't want that. We're going to select landscape left, because if we select auto rotate, then whenever the mobile will be vertical, our game will get rotated and it will look very bad. So now we need to do the most important things. If you go to this other settings, you can see here we have under identification, we have this package name. So this is very, very important. You need to give it a package name that's unique. As you can see, it is written com.chargergames.unity Android project, and that's because I have already written Charger Games there. So now in newer versions, Unity writes this automatically. But if in your case it doesn't write it automatically, then what you can do is you can write com dot name of your company or name of your domain, like in my case Charger Games dot name of the game. That is, in this case I'm going to write Android project or Android test, or let's write ball bounce, and then you can give it a version. Whenever you create a new version, you need to give a new version here. And then here we have few more settings. Make sure this ARM v7 is checked, and if you want to select this ARM64, then you need to change the scripting backend from mono to IL to CPP. Okay, as you can see now this option is opened. If you want to publish it on Google Play Store, then you need to do this. Otherwise you can simply clip it mono and then keep it like this, and all these things should work fine as they are already here. Now we can close it, and now I can simply click on this build button. Here we can create a new folder named builds and open it. And here I'm going to give the file name ball bounce and click on save. And whenever we click on save, Unity will convert it to an APK and it will save it there. And if you don't have the Android build support, Android SDK, NDK and JDK downloaded, then it will not happen. You will get a lot of errors. So make sure those things are installed. So let me wait for it to build and then I can show it to you. So now as you can see, it has finished building the APK. As you can see here, we have the ball bounce APK file created. So you can simply go ahead and copy and paste it or move it to your own Android device, or you can send it, email it to your own device and then install it, and then you can play it on your mobile device. So this way you can build it. Another way to do that is by clicking build and run. So if you click on build and run, then you can directly run it on your own Android device after building it. So to do that, you need to make sure that you have an Android device connected to your computer via USB cable. And once you have that, only after that you can click on this build and run, and it will automatically run on your mobile device. Also, you need to make sure that you have USB debugging turned on your device. If you don't know how to turn it on, then simply go ahead and Google search giving the name of your device company. Then it will show how to turn on the USB debugging or developer options in your mobile device. Now I have my Android device attached to my computer via a USB cable, and I have also the USB debugging turned on. So now it will be easy for us to install the build and run the Android app. So we can click on this build and run, and then it will ask us to select a folder. I think I'm gonna create a new inside this builds. I'm gonna name it ball bounce 2. Click on save. It is building, and now it will find an Android device. It will find my device and then it will install it. As you can see, it is creating the project, creating the build, and finally it will run it and install it on my mobile device. Here, as you can see, it says copying APK package to this device. This is the name of my device. So it's automatically installing it here, and then it will run it. So currently the game is running on my mobile device and I can play it here. So in my mobile device, I can simply click left and right and move it, and the paddle will move. And whenever the ball falls down, it goes and restarts again. So the game is working absolutely fine on my Android device, and it's working. So this is how you can go ahead and build and run the game on your mobile device. Okay, so this way we have learned how to build a complete simple Android game from start to finish using Unity game engine and C#.